Hi, welcome to Soul Talk. Our guest for today is Christopher C. He is the youngest member of the Theosophical Society Board of Trustees. He is a student of Theosophy for 20 years. He facilitates the TS Youth Group and the Unity of Life Meditation Group. He is a nurse by profession and currently working as a clinical trainer for a health PPO. So let's welcome Christopher.
Hi, Michelle. Hi. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy that you said yes kasi alam ko naman talaga na napaka-busy mo. Actually, just for the sake of those who are watching, I've met Christopher way back in, gosh, kailan pa ba yon? 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
And when an acquaintance, actually a common friend of ours, introduced us, and he was the one who attuned me to Reiki level 1. And the thing is, he did it for free. We gave the donation and my friend told me na yung donations na yon, diretso yan sa mga temples or sa foundations. Basta diretso donate, hindi niya ginagamit. So that really um, struck a chord in my heart, and I remembered him na. And then recently, I also saw him in one of the healing events in QC. So, ayun, we got reconnected, and now he's here in Soul Talk, and we're going to talk about the Theosophical Society and what Theosophy is all about. So, ayun, let's just welcome Chris, and I'm so happy he's here because he's really very busy. So we won't waste
Great
so much
nice
of
meeting you.
we won't waste so much of your time. But tell me na how would you describe your life? What keeps you busy?
Well, right now, most of the time I'm busy with work. So I have a corporate job. So I'm a clinical trainer for a health insurance company. And then aside from that, most of my weekends I spend at the Theosophical Society. So I'm the president of the Pranava Lodge currently. So we usually have a weekly meeting where we discuss various theosophical topics. So that's basically what keeps me going. So usually just my work and then activities in the TS, and of course some of the responsibilities at home. So that's usually where that's what I usually do
Mm-mm.
today.
Oo. So, right now ba you're still working from home? Kasi sabihin
Yes,
ko di ba?
yes. Actually, our company is very proud. I won't say the name, but our company is very proud that from day one of the pandemic, we were actually prepared. So from day one of the pandemic, we were already working from home. They already issued us our individual laptops, and our laptops came um, with our own pocket Wi-Fi at that time. So we have two pocket Wi-Fis each. So just in case we have bad network connection with one, we have another one. So they're kind of proud that we're prepared for the pandemic.
Grabe. Tapos so on weekends naman, it's all TS related work naman.
Usually I take Saturday as my rest day, and then usually for Sunday. But it's not really work because I really enjoy being in TS. I enjoy the discussions and the meditation, so I don't really consider that as work. It's something that I enjoy. And one of the people who attend regularly on our meditations actually say that they feel refreshed after our meditation. So they also don't consider it as work. They feel that it's like they say that if a Catholic would go to mass to feel refreshed, they also feel the same way when they go to TS or when they attend a meditation session.
Mm-mm. Pero you facilitate the meditations then, di ba? Is this the same as the new moon and the full moon meditations? Or Theosophical Society has a different set of meditations?
The Theosophical Society actually caters to a lot of forms of meditation because one of our leaders, his name is Led Leader, he says that depending on your rate type or your personality, there would be certain meditations that are easier for you. For example, a Ray 6 person is supposed to be a devotee. So for a person who is a devotee, their meditation would be more on devotion to God, more on self-surrender. But if you're like a Ray 4 person who is artistic, who likes to have beautiful things, he says that the meditation for you would be more on Hatha Yoga. because the different postures, you will have to exert your will effort in order to keep them graceful and to keep the movements really perfect. So that would be a good meditation for you. And if you're a Ray 1 person is a leader. They're very strong-willed. The perfect one would be Raja Yoga, because Raja Yoga has an entire system how you regulate your life. So there's a different form of meditation suited for everyone. For our group, the Unity of Life Meditation Group, because Theosophy also has other, how shall I say it, other groups that derive from its teachings. There are other outsourcing groups that came from after Theosophy. So we're also a part of that. So we're also part of another movement, the Alice Bailey movement. So the new moon and the full moon actually follows her teachings. It's still considered Theosophy by some, but it's a new organization in itself. So usually we have our meditation in our friend's house, just near TS also. It's in somewhere in Sampaloc, Manila. But there are times when TS is free because there are a lot of public events in TS during Sundays. If it's free on Sunday, they also allow us to hold our meditation there. Generally, as long as you don't do anything that is contradictory to the theosophical ideals, so as long as you don't sacrifice animals, you don't do anything harmful, you don't kill anything, you don't harm, you don't say bad words during your meditation, if you're going to have an activity for world peace, if you're going to have like a prayer meeting for world peace, and it doesn't have a conflict with other faiths, they're generally welcomed in TS. So it's not uncommon for TS, for example, one Sunday we have a Zen meditation class, and then the next Sunday we have Sufis. So we'll have Islams playing their instruments and doing a vikir, I think, and that is welcomed in TS. So the different varieties, the different rituals and meditations, they're all welcome in TS, as long as they don't violate the theosophical idea.
Oo, pero ano that's really interesting that your form of meditation is parang may template ka kay Alice Bailey galing. And she follows the new moon and the full moon. But then it's also good that ano, Theosophy has different categories for different types of people, and then they would acknowledge that okay, for this type of person, mas bagay sa kanila yung, kunwari, sinabi mo yung Ray 1, mas bagay doon yung Raja Yoga, or for another Ray, mas bagay yung Hatha, and that's, or the devotees, diba? So amazing that there's actually a category for meditation for different types of people.
That,
How did you how did
that is what
you Kasi 'di ba nasabi mo that you have been studying Theosophy for 20 years. So how did you learn about TS, and what made you really study it for 2 decades? That's a long time, and parang lifelong learner na talaga yung labas nun eh. What attracted you to TS, and how did you learn about TS?
actually, when I started, I was actually interested in psychicism. So back then, I was studying in college in USC, and I was interested in psychicism. So I think I was in contact with the group by Jimmy Licauco at that time. And then I was having inquiries, and then they told me that one of them commented that I have such a philosophical mind, and they think that theosophy would be a good fit for me. And I said, "What's that? I have no idea what that is." And then they brought me actually to the Theosophical Society because it's just near España. It's in Welcome Rotonda, the main
Mhm.
headquarters. So initially, I found Theosophy very fascinating because it's a very, very broad philosophy. It has levels and levels of meaning in it. As well, they say that one of the definitions of Theosophy is that it's an ocean of truth, and there are people who
Ocean
are just on
Ocean
the
of Truth?
seashore, and they're just playing on the seashore, and that's okay. But there are people
Mhm.
who want to go into a deep dive into it, and their experiences will, of course, be different. So, Theosophy has a way, if you will study Theosophical cosmology, everything is sorted out in a divine plan. So, you'll see that, oh, there's an animal kingdom, a plant kingdom, a human kingdom, there's an angelic kingdom. How do these different kingdoms interact? What is the evolutionary processes that we have to undergo before we move from an animal to a human to an angelic being. So everything there, it's like it gives you a map of reality that is so all-encompassing. And I guess my mind likes to have that idea because when I'm studying esotericism, that's my point of view. It's like I'm a small boy and I have a toy and I want to break it down into pieces. And I think that's also one of the strong points of Theosophy because Theosophy has this philosophical template and then it applies to the entire universe. It gives you a comprehensive map of reality. Of course, there are also other systems such as Zen Buddhism, Hinduism. They also have a map of reality, but Theosophy was created it was started in 1875 to introduce Eastern philosophy to the West. So it's very adapted to the Western mindset. So it's not that foreign because if you study Zen immediately, you might get overwhelmed with so many terms and terminologies. But here, it's just English. They just have different terms. Sometimes they have to borrow Sanskrit terms, but the Sanskrit terms will be explained because sometimes there's no direct translation from Sanskrit to English. So, for example, Buddhi, it's sometimes translated as intuition. Sometimes it's related to our love principle, but generally it's actually our spiritual soul. So there's no direct translation of what Buddhi is or what Atma is, but it's explained in a way that it can be understood by Westerners. And I think most of Filipinos are more attuned to the Western way of thinking than to the Eastern way of thinking. The Eastern way of thinking is more intuitive. So the Western way is more logical. And I think that's one of the strong points of Theosophy, that it actually gives you a map of reality that appears logical, but it hints that there is something underneath it that is beyond logic. That if you meditate on it, you will be able to understand it more deeply.
Mm. Actually, I've also, refreshed my memory. Kasi, I used to be interested with, Theosophy. And one of my teachers recommended it because I have a very discerning mind. And yun lang nga, nalayuan ako kasi I'm from Makati and then the headquarters of TS is in Espanya, 'di ba? So parang sabi ko, "Oh my gosh, ang layo kung pupunta ako doon." So na parang nawalan na ng opportunity to really go deep into Theosophy. But then, when I read about Theosophy, what I love about it is that it's an integration of science, philosophy, and spirituality, which is religion. So, and then you're telling me the different realities, and it really originated from in the US, 'di ba? Parang what they did is to introduce Hinduism into the Western world. So, kaya parang yung wordings, it's also easier to digest kasi it's all in English. And you're also right that meron kasi mga ibang Sanskrit na hindi talaga siya walang equivalent word for English. So they really need to use that word and just translate it or just give more explanations. Pero I also believe kasi that Hinduism is also, stemming from Buddhism and all. So maganda pa rin yung principles in life. But for you, if a beginner, if someone who has no knowledge of what theosophy is, how would you summarize theosophy for them?
Okay. So in general, we cannot really define theosophy because theosophy means theos, divine. Sophy means wisdom. So in general, it's divine wisdom. So we cannot really define because the divine is infinite. So if we put definition on it, it's no longer divine. However, if I'm going to explain it to someone who doesn't understand it, theosophy is a search for the common core truth of different religions. So for example, in theosophy, we believe that there are different layers or levels of religions. So, for example, the first level is the level of rituals and superstitions. So, at this level, all the religions will never agree because the Catholics will say that this is the right ritual. The Hindus will say, no, the puja is the right ritual. And then the Buddhists will say, no, chanting mantras is the best ritual. So at that level, we won't agree. At the second level, there is the level of dogmas. Again, we will never agree with that because the Christians will say Christ is the only truth. He's the only one. If you don't believe in him, you will burn in hell. And then the Buddhists will say na the Buddha taught us the precepts. These are the correct. These are the most accurate. Although Buddhism is more open compared to other religions because they acknowledge that other beings can also be enlightened, but they will always stick to their own core teachings. And then the Hindus will always say that no, our rituals, our mantras are the most powerful. But there is a core within that religion that is the center of that religion, which is common to everyone. So, for example, the core teaching of Christianity, according to Jesus Christ, is to love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with everything, and then to love your neighbor as yourself. According to the Buddha, he can summarize his entire teaching by saying, do good and avoid evil. The same way for Hinduism, they try to avoid evil, they try to do harm, and they try to avoid doing harm to other people. So if you will go into the core of each of these teachings, you will see that there is a commonality among them, especially if you go into the spiritual teachings of the mystics of the various religions. So, for example, if you read the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and you read the books by Saint John of the Cross, and you read the other mystical literatures of Christianity and Buddhism, they actually talk about the same experiences. They talk about the same teachings, although they use different terminologies. And that is what theosophy is basically. It's a search for truth. And theosophy does not have any dogmas. So, according to our founder, Madame Blavatsky, there is only one teaching that is common to all theosophists, and that is the belief that there is only one life and that there is a brotherhood among men. As long as you believe that, you can consider yourself a theosophist. However, there are certain doctrines because there are certain questions in life, like why is someone born rich? Why is someone born poor? So theosophy has doctrines. It has postulates. The correct term actually is postulates. So these are, let's say, Madame Blavatsky's answer to that particular question. But whether you accept or not what she teaches, it's up to you. One of the fundamental principles of the esoteric or the ageless wisdom teachings is that our first teacher is our soul or higher self. And we access that teaching or the wisdom of our higher self through study, meditation, and service. So if I will present to you an esoteric teaching, for example, this morning I was discussing the wisdom of triangles. So we were talking about the Buddha and the Christ. So I will be presenting to you an esoteric teaching. We don't expect you to believe that, but we do expect you to reflect on it. If the teachings make logical sense to you, then perhaps there's a kernel of truth in it. But if you don't think that it makes any logical sense, then just leave it aside for the time being. We can come back to it at a later time. Perhaps it's not true, or perhaps now is not the correct time for you to accept that truth, or perhaps there's other reasons why you're not accepting that. Once you see that it is logical, you then try to sit into a period of meditation. And then you try to ascertain for yourself, does this teaching resonate with something deep within me? If it does, then there's probably some kernel of truth in it. But if it doesn't, so again, just set it aside and we'll come back to it at a later time. And lastly, it should help you live a life of service. So if you apply the esoteric teachings, does it help you become more loving, more kind, more compassionate? If it does, then it's probably true. But if it doesn't, if it makes you more egocentric, it makes you more proud, like I know this. The majority of humanity doesn't know this esoteric teaching. If it gives you that sense of pride, that egoism, then probably that teaching is not for you at this particular time. So remember also what the Buddha said, to treat the esoteric teachings as like a boat. So if you need to cross the river, then use the boat to cross that river. But once you reach the shore, then you let go of the boat. Because what is correct in one stage of evolution may not necessarily be correct at another stage. Although there are universal principles that are correct at all stages, but there are certain stages wherein a person has to undergo this, and we don't judge that. It's just something that they have to go through because it's a process. Life is a process, and we have to understand that sometimes we have to undergo certain things, and we use these certain teachings to help us across the river. Once we get across the river, we let it go, and perhaps there's another teaching that will help us cross the land until we finally reach the goal of enlightenment.
Oh, so the goal is enlightenment. Pero ano, I love what you just explained. It's ano, hindi ko alam kung magigets ng mga na nasa community ko, but I'm enjoying this conversation because Theosophic is looking at the commonality of all religions, and it's true that yun nga, yung kay Christ, diba? It's really to love God above all else and to surrender. And then kay Buddha, and then with the Hinduism, it's really to do good and avoid harm, doing evil as much as possible. So that is the basic principle. And I also love that we always go back to our higher selves when it comes to seeking the truth, because it, it resonates with me, because whenever I encounter an issue or a problem, I always contemplate and discern, and I always go back to myself. I ask God, and I also ask kung ano yung highest value for me, and what's the best that I could do that won't harm anyone around me. And actually, those are beautiful things. Actually, habang nagsasalita ka, gusto ko mag-take ng notes. Kaya lang, I know if I take down notes, I won't be able to listen to everything. And the last thing that I love about what you said is there are some stages in our lives wherein we just accept the things that we can, but let go of the things that we don't. So parang naalala ko, kurare, when I was young, I really hated peas. As in yung green peas. And my mom would always put it inside the fried rice. So ang ginagawa ko, imbis na hindi ko kainin yung fried rice, I just remove the peas. Kasi yun lang naman, yung green peas lang naman yung hindi ko matake eh. And then I'll eat the entire thing. So it's the same with what Chris is saying earlier na maybe if some of the discussions or some of the truths doesn't resonate with you, you don't need to just brush it all off. You could just take the things that you can digest. And the rest, baka hindi pa ngayon yung oras. Baka you still need more maturity, you still need more time, you still need to grow for you to really understand that. And there's no judgment in that. So, it reminds me so much of my counseling work because I also cannot judge my counselees, even when there are times when I can already see what's the issue, and I know that parang hindi pa siya ready to face this reality. So, hangga't hindi pa ready, ang importante masaya siya. And, yon, hindi ko pagpipilitan yung alam ko sa kanya for now, hangga't hindi pa ready. So, with that kind of principle, I can resonate so much with that. And I love how you explained it. Yun lang ang dami. So parang feeling ko biglang na-overload na yung mga ibang tao kung nakikinig sila sa iyo. Pero kasi you've said that you've already explained that meditation is an integral part of Theosophy, because you really have to go into meditation, into silence, into stillness for you to find out your own personal truth and even the truth, 'di ba? So, but kasi you're also a Reiki master and you've been doing attunements. So, would you say that this is also aligned to the teachings of Theosophy?
Oh, yes, very much. Actually, as I mentioned, one of the things that I like about Theosophy is that it gives a comprehensive view of reality. So, if you recall, during the time when I was giving a lecture on Reiki, I used the concept of the seven bodies of man or the seven principles of man. And these seven principles are actually derived from Theosophy. And there is a lot of material regarding the constitution of man in Theosophy because we also use it. We also have in Theosophy the self transformation seminar. So, for example, there we teach people how to handle fear, how to handle worry, how to deal with anger, and we use the science of the seven principles of man in order to help that. You don't need to have any medication. You just use awareness basically in order to help that. So if you will notice also, there are a lot of people who are into pranic healing who are also into Theosophy. This is because Master Cho of Sweden their founder, also studied Theosophy during a certain point of his life. And as far as I know, the Pranic Healing Foundation also recommends that those people who are studying Pranic Healing should also study Theosophy. This is because so that they can have a broader perspective on life. It's not just limited to healing, but it tells you exactly what man is. So we're not just our physical body, we're actually composed of 7 layers of our being. So that's a topic of a different discussion. But the seven constitution of man, the seven principles of man, is one of my favorite topics in Theosophy. And for most people who are new to Theosophy, I would suggest that they first start reading with the Constitution of Man. Because if they start with something cosmical, like the Secret Doctrine, how can you prove that there were seven root races before our first root race, right? But if you study first the Constitution of Man, you will be able to ascertain, wait, Theosophy teaches us that our emotions work at a certain way. Can I verify that? Theosophy teaches us that our mind moves at a certain way. It has two levels, the abstract and the concrete mind. During meditation, this is what happens. So when you go into meditation, it's you can verify it for yourself that really this is what happens during meditation. So there is a basis for what they're saying. It's not something highly abstract like the cosmos, the different planetary systems, or something like that. But of course, eventually, as you study Theosophy, you will eventually venture into these cosmical events and you will study how the universe came about and the different races of men, the different kingdoms of nature. But for beginners, I usually advise to start with where you are right now, and we are human beings. So let's start with our own seven bodies.
Mm. So so yung Reiki, it's also aligned to the constitution of man, which is the
Yes.
7 layers of the body.
Yes. So most of the time, esoteric healing focuses on the etheric body. So the etheric body is part of our physical body, but it's composed of a finer matter. And the etheric body connects our emotions and our mind. So negative thoughts and negative emotions can manifest as physical symptoms because of the etheric body. So there are many functions of the etheric body. It serves as a storehouse of our life force. So if through Reiki and through other energy healing methods, we're able to clear the energy body, to strengthen it, and to build it up with more positive energy so that it becomes healthier.
Mm. Is the etheric body almost similar to the auric body, or
It,
what we call the aura?
it's actually a portion of that. Theosophy says that it's actually called by the psychics as the health aura because diseases would always manifest first in the etheric body before the physical body. However, some psychics are also able to see the astral body, so it also appears to them as the emotion. So it appears to them also as a form or a part of that aura. And then the mind, there are actually some members in the history of the Theosophical Society, there are some clairvoyants who are actually able to see even the mental body of man. And sometimes when we are visualizing or when we are creating thoughts, the clairvoyants can actually see these shapes taking form within the astral body. So that's also another interesting aspect of Theosophy because the paranormal is
Yes.
explainable if you study
Mhm.
Theosophy.
Oo, oo. Actually, I'm well, now that you're explaining it, there's a science behind it then, 'di ba?
Yes.
Pero kasi I'm also exposed to other clairvoyants, to other psychics, and meron mga talagang psychics na isang tingin lang niya sa'yo, nakikita niya na yung mga mental pictures all around you. So, alam niya na yung istorya ng buhay mo. Meron mga gano'n. So, yes, naniniwala ako dyan that there are different bodies and, we store our mental images there or emotions, and with Reiki, it helps flush it all out. So,
So
that's
actually,
also, yes.
so actually in the Theosophical Society, there are three objectives of the society. The first one is to form a nucleus of brotherhood among humanity, regardless of race, color, caste, religion, etc. So in the Mahatma letters, one of the letters of our teachers, they say that one of the problems of humanity is that we're too busy being Christians, being Muslims, being Hindus that we forget that we're all humans. So this is just one of the major goals of Theosophy, to unite humanity, to remind us all that we're just all brothers. The second is to encourage the study of comparative religion and philosophy. So that's what we were discussing earlier. So we're trying to find the core of each religion. That's why in Theosophy, the second president of the Theosophical Society, Annie Besant, mentioned or advised us not to live your religion, but to live your religion. So if you're a Catholic, stay a Catholic. However, try to find the core of what being a Catholic means. If you're a Buddhist, don't leave Buddhism, but try to find what is the core teaching of the Buddha. She says that if we reach the core, it will all be the same, regardless if you're Christian, you're Buddhist, or you're Hindu. As long as you live at that core principle, it will always be the same. So if you just skip from one religion to another, you're just wasting your time because, well, sometimes the religions, the rituals, and the dogmas will help. But if you can really go into the core of that religion, it will always be the same. But of course, this takes a lot of work because the religions, a lot of dogma and a lot of superstitions have crept up to it. So you have to remove all of these things to get really to the core. And the third goal is to explain the hidden laws of nature. So this is where the paranormal happens. So in the Theosophical Society, we also explore concepts such as clairvoyance, clairaudience. We also explore the paranormal powers of man. However, we don't have practices that encourage the development of psychic powers because in the spiritual traditions, for example, the Yoga Sutras, they tell us that if nature opened these abilities, then nature has an obligation to take care of you. But if you do it on your own, then nature doesn't have an obligation for you. So if you're meditating and these abilities spontaneously develop out of your own spiritual maturity, then there will be somebody to guide you. It may be physical or non-physical, but there will always be someone who will guide you. But if you just want to have psychic powers, you just want to have powers, not because of anything else, you just want to have powers. So your motivation will not attract the right kind of teacher to assist you in developing these. And there is a potential danger to that. So we just try to live a theosophical life, which is a life of study, meditation, and service. And then we leave it to nature's processes for these powers to spontaneously develop on their own.
Ang ano, I, I, I didn't know that those were the three objectives of the Theosophical Society that because those are honorable and really admirable objectives to be very inclusive. Parang let go of the race, the religions, that we're all human. So there should be a brotherhood or ano, yung pakikisama and to live in a peaceful way. And ano rin, parang maganda rin yung sinabi mo yung sa third na objective, which is if you're meditating and all the gifts naturally, just surface, then there would be someone who would really guide you. It's the law of nature. And you don't need to force it. Kasi pag pinorse mo, parang you can be hurt, which is true naman. Kasi I also know some people who had they have psychic abilities. They since they don't have the maturity yet to handle it, they had to ask someone to close it temporarily. So, meron mga ganon. Meron din naman iba na finorce na buksan, hindi nila alam anong gagawin nila doon or hindi nila malaman kung tama ba 'to nakikita ko. Kasi to have those abilities means that you need a certain level of maturity as well. Yung hindi ka talaga matatakot agad, you know how to use your spiritual authority. And that's why for me, if nature or if God wants me to have those abilities, then sige, okay lang, pero do it gradually. Yun. And I know naman, kasi with meditation talaga, nabubukas eh. So, I can understand what you're saying, that through meditation, these gifts, the spiritual gifts, can really be open. And, I am thankful that I also have my own mentors and teachers who are guiding me along the way. And you know what you just said, it goes to show that there really is something bigger at work.
Yes.
And we don't necessarily see it, but it happens. And ano lang, minsan kasi ako, yung ugali ko is, I'll just leave it to God. If it's part of spirituality, I don't really need to understand so much of it. Pero kasi sa Theosophy, it's different eh. You study it, and then you meditate on it. But then you use it also for the good. You do service using what you know. And um, actually, ano ba yung mga ano? Kasi I also saw that the Theosophical Society also has schools, and
Yes.
then they also have peace missions, yung mga ganon. So, ano yung mga, what are, kasi ano ako kasi I'm not really that familiar with what TS has been doing. But the first time I encountered TS, it was in Houston because I visited my sister there 3 or 4 years ago. No, 5 years ago when she got she got I'm sorry, that was 3 years ago, sorry. 3 years ago when she got pregnant with her second kid. And nasa Houston, so sabi, parang nag-search lang ako, meron bang TS sa Houston? Meron lodge. So I visited. So imagine, I'm a Filipino and the first TS lodge that I visited is in Houston. So yung mga tao doon parang, why are you here? The TS in the Philippines is really flourishing. So ano, yun yung first ko na encounter with TS. And then I met you, but then I'm not really familiar with the things that TS, the activities of TS here in our country. So what are the things that the society has been doing?
So usually, the theosophical life is actually a life of study, meditation, and service. So an individual theosophist would always focus on study. So when we say study, this includes studying the different religious materials, the different secret books of the different religions. So we will study the Bhagavad Gita, we will study the Bible, um, we will study the Quran and the different books. But we're looking at it from an esoteric angle. So, for example, one of the books by Jeffrey Hodgson, one of the famous theosophical authors, is the Ancient Wisdom in the Holy Bible. So, Jeffrey Hodgson tells us that there are many things in the Bible which are illogical. So, for example, in the Old Testament, there was a time when the sun stood still. So, he says that if the sun stood still, the world would collapse because everything is dependent on the sun. The gravitational forces of the solar system will go haywire. So it's not something that happened literal, but it's something esoteric. It's actually a metaphor. So it says that the sun or higher self. So it stood still, meaning that it actually shed light upon that person, and that light did not go away for a particular period of time. So that person had great energy and strength and great inspiration for a very long period of time. So that was what his interpretation was of that particular event. And then, for example, Samson, when he cut his hair,
Mm.
so the hair is actually the symbol of the Sanskrit term is antakarana. It's the connection between the higher self and the lower self. So he mentions that the cutting of Samson's hair means that the connection between the higher self and the lower self was actually disconnected. And this was because of his sexual desire for Delilah. So because of that, he lost the inspiration from his higher self, and because of that, the Israelites lost. So it's not literal that somebody cut off your hair and magically he got weak, but it's actually a metaphor that he lost his connection to his higher self because of his too much sexual desire over Delilah, and therefore he lost his inspiration, he lost his drive, and he lost his ability to lead the people. So you have to look at it from that angle. So that study, and then you also study life. So for example, if we're studying karma, you don't have to accept it as a dogma, but you have to recognize in yourself, is it really true? If I do bad things really come back to me? You have to analyze that for yourself. If I meditate, is it true what Theosophy says? Is my mind really moving at this particular direction? So that's also part of study. And then meditation, of course, you find the perfect meditation for you. And then lastly is service. So the goal of Theosophy, according to our founders, is altruism. So if you will define Theosophy, they say it's altruism. So as a society, our activities also focus on that. So on the study aspect, there are lodges. So lodges are actually study groups. So we study esoteric materials, we study the different religions, we study mysticism, and we also study life in general. And then, so that's why we also have a lot of public lectures in the TS. So you can almost often see me there, but there are also other theosophical speakers, and we have very good theosophical speakers, really seasoned theosophical speakers. So that is the study component. So we're usually part of that, but we're also teaching people about life. So one of the famous seminars of the TS is the self-transformation seminar. So they also conduct that in the military because just because they're aggressive doesn't mean that they have to be angry. That doesn't mean that they're a bad person.
Mhm.
In fact, when they conducted the self-transformation seminar, they say that there's actually very few times that the soldier has to fight. Most of the time, they're actually there to help build like the barrios. They're actually there to help other people. Their fighting only happens when it's absolutely necessary, but um, they're not really there just to kill people. They're just there to help us and to help other people. And then if the soldiers, for example, develop trauma, they develop phobias, Theosophy has techniques that can help them understand this and cope with this. So I've actually seen various examples of the self-transformation seminar. There are people who are claustrophobic, and then after undergoing self-awareness processing, if you leave them, because in the headquarters there's actually a small closet, and it's very very dark, and there's no room inside. She went inside to test if she was still afraid. She went inside, she closed the door. She said that previously, before undergoing emotional processing, just the sight of the door would make her cry, and she will go hysterical before going into that door. But now she went inside, she locked the door, she closed it, she tried to assess her feelings, and she was okay, and she stepped out. And she didn't cry, there was nothing there. She was just perfectly normal. And the process actually only took around 15 to 20 minutes, and this particular phobia really bothered her for a very, very long period of her life. So those things are the things that we study in Theosophy. And
Mm.
then on the meditation side, we also have our meditation seminars, um, our meditation retreats. So the Theosophical Society also has youth camps so that they can teach meditation to the youth, primarily more on the stress management aspect, because usually the youth are not really into the enlightenment or whatever, or the nirvana phase. They're more into how to live effective lives. So we focus more on that. But meditation is not limited only to sitting meditation. So in the Theosophical Society, we also have yoga classes. And before the pandemic, we also had Tai Chi classes. So those are also incorporated into the system. So we try to work with that. And then we have the Theosophical Order of Service. So this is the service arm of the Theosophical Society. Before I was there, before I was in the Theosophical Society, that
Mhm.
was like way, way back. The society had a lot of projects that they wanted to help with the community. So they had outreach programs. Um, they did medical missions, and then they also did financing, microfinancing for people. However, they noticed that, for example, if they send doctors to a particular barrio, next year they will still be sick, right? Because there's no change in their lifestyle. It's just that the people became dependent on the medical mission. They're now expecting that every year there is a medical mission.
Mhm.
Similarly, for the finance, um, so the TS would lend them money, and then the TS would lend them money, just a small amount, but with that, they can start a small sari-sari store. And before they are able to have that microfinance, they would have to attend a how to manage a business seminar. So we also have a lot of members who are prominent businessmen. So they also provide like a short workshop on how to manage a small business. But they noticed that because the lifestyle hasn't changed. So if they give them money today, usually the businesses fall or they fail, and then next year they will be applying again for another plan. So they said that the problems of society has to be addressed at a deeper level than what is being currently addressed using medical missions, then microfinancing, then there's also the soup kitchen where they feed the hungry people in the street. So they say that these are band-aids, but they don't really address the real root cause of the problem. So the then board of the then board of trustees in the TS, one of them, Mr. Bikaushin, so he's a very prominent businessman. He decided that he studied the entire situation. He said that to really education. So he established a school. He called it the Golden Link College. At the time of its establishment, I think I was still in college. However, I do recall that at that time he was trying to hire people, and because it was just starting, most of the people were just volunteers. However, he made sure that because there are also books on theosophical education. So and then there are also principles of the self-transformation seminar. So he made sure that the educational system to be followed in Golden Link College would follow the self-transformation framework. So his focus is more on creating an environment that is free from competition, free from fear, and that the people there will be happy, but at the same time, they will be equipped to learn about life. So one of the things that he often tells us is that in school, we learn about calculus, we learn about algebra, but actually, how many times do we actually use that every day? We seldom use them, right? Unless you're an engineer or your profession really needs that. But how come we don't have classes on parenting? Most of us will become parents at one stage or another. And even if we don't become biological parents, we still have like nephews, nieces, and we have to take care of the young. So why isn't that being taught in school, right? And then he also mentions that everybody experiences depression, everybody experiences fear, everybody experiences anxiety. Why why aren't we being taught in school how to handle these fears? Because in the self-transformation seminar, the first time that you will undergo processing, you have to be guided by, for example, me, I'm a facilitator. I will guide you on how to process. But afterwards, once you learn the technique, you can actually do it by yourself. And it's very effective. I've actually seen people who resolve lifelong phobias in just like 20 or 30 minutes. But sometimes it takes them a week. But still, what is a week compared to a lifetime of phobias and fears, right? So that is one of the major thrusts of the Theosophical School. And there are subjects on Theosophy there, but it's not really a religious school. So it's not like a Catholic school where you have to go there and then you have to study the doctrines of Christianity. So you can go there and then you have subjects like comparative religion, you have subjects like comparative philosophy or Theosophy 101, but you don't have to be a Theosophist. You can still remain as a Catholic, you can still remain as a Buddhist. You can just go there. But the foundations of the school are based on theosophical principles.
Oo. Is the school private ba or is it public?
Yes, it's private. It's in Camarin, Caloocan. So
Ah,
majority of the students there are actually scholars. So usually there are members of the Theosophical Society who um, who donate a certain portion for their schooling. So these students they study there sometimes for free, but there are other people, a small majority, who are actually private students and they pay on their own because one of the features there I recall is that their cafeteria is vegetarian. So there are people I know who want their children to grow up vegetarian. So even if they have to travel very far, they actually go to Golden Link to send their kids there so
oh
that the kids
my.
will grow up vegetarian.
Kakaiba. Pero I didn't realize that TS here in the Philippines has so many activities rin na naka-line up. And I suppose I wasn't just paying attention so much to all of it. So but I'll send actually I'll share the link of the Theosophical Society's page to my community para at least aware din sila of it if they want to learn more. So as a beginner, the first thing that you really have to learn is the Constitution of Man.
Yes.
Oo, para at least relatable, 'di ba? Kasi it's about us.
I
So,
in a self-transformation seminar. So
yes,
it's applied theosophy.
oo. So the self-transformation seminar rin, that's also a good activity to join. And actually ang ganda. I like what you said about the yung studying comparative religion. Because before, I used to want to, ganyan, pero nawalan lang ng time. As in, nawalan na ng hanggang sa nawala na yung want na yon. But then, I like what you said about, in the gospel, yung sa Old Testament, when the sun, stopped for a few days. So it's a metaphor of your higher self really being on top of you and you connecting to it. So for those who are not aware, your higher self is like yung mas nakakaalam sa buhay mo. And your lower self is the one in the earthly realm. So yung connection ng higher and lower self, that's also nasa hair din siya. Like what Chris said yung kay Samson. So when Samson's hair was cut, parang kinot mo na rin yung alignment ng higher self and lower self. And sa higher self kasi, that's where we're getting our inspiration, the creative juices, all the blessings, 'di ba? Parang if you're so attuned to the higher self, and the higher self is connected pa to source ang dami pa nun. So, connected siya kay God. And when you are truly aligned to the divine, you get your inspiration from there, and that's where your strength is coming from. So that's a good ang ganda nun na it popped up in our conversation. And of course the trust of being altruistic, helping our community. So I like the setup of Golden Link colleges, by college, no, or
Yes.
school.
You
Ayun.
should visit it because it's really an experience. There are foreign theosophists who come to Golden Link, and then when they go there, people just stop and then they shake their hands, and some of the little children hug them, even if they don't know who they are. And the people there are really very genuine. Their warmth is really, really very genuine, and you can feel that they don't have any fear or, you know, because in general, most of our schools they impose discipline on us by inciting fear. But in Golden Link, because it's based on theosophy, so no, you don't need to impose fear on the child. Because if you impose fear on the child, if you're no longer there, then they will still do what they want to do. But if you explain to the child that you don't do this because this will happen, and if the child sees that you're telling the truth, then even if you're not there, they will still follow you because they have a respect for you, they have a love for you, not because they are afraid of you. So those are also some of the wonderful things about Golden Link College. So it's something you have to experience for yourself. It's not because at the start of the day they have a circle wherein the children they go into silence for a few moments. And then I remember some of the reflections of the college students, especially those who undertook the comparative religion. They say that before she was afraid of Muslims because they thought that they were terrorists, they were death. But after she studied the Quran, she said that, these teachings are not really different from the way that Christianity teaches these things also. So there must be something common about us. And probably not all Muslims are terrorists. Maybe some of them are also just like us. And they're also just as afraid of the terrorists as we are. So those things are some of the realizations that they undergo. So it really goes to the root of the problem because if we can grow children in the light of the universal principles, then there might really be a change in society.
Actually, naniniwala ako dun. Saka, the Quran, it's also a sacred script and it's God-inspired. So, it's really based on man's interpretation of what's written. So, even the Bible, ganun din, di ba? It's God-inspired, it's a sacred script. But then, when you interpret it in a negative way, nagiging very fundamentalist, nagiging very dogmatic. So, it's
Yes.
maganda yung sa Theosophy is really going to the core of the religion. Ano ba talaga yung core na tinuturo? So, ayun, yun lang nga. There's a lot of discernment that comes with that because you have to let go of the rituals, the superstitions, yun nga,
Yes.
metaphors. You have to understand that. And ano pa, yung mga dogma, of course, di ba? So you really have to peel off a lot of things and you have to really look at it under the microscope. Parang ganun yung ano. And I like the way Golden Link is, teaching the younger generation. So that's also a different progressive kind of teaching that's being done. Would you say that um the TS is part of your spiritual journey as well, or is it because of the Theosophical Society that your spiritual journey really reignited?
Yes. So, the Theosophical Society would say that we shouldn't be attached to anything, even to the teachings themselves, because as we previously mentioned, the Buddha says that if you need to let go, then you have to let go. So there are times when you also need to let go of the Theosophical teachings. However, at the current moment, what I like about the Theosophical Society is that it gives you a broad perspective on life. So as I mentioned before, everything happens because there is a divine plan. So if you will study the cosmology of the Theosophical Society, you will understand that there are great beings who actually watch over the destiny of humanity. It's like the chaos theory of science. In the chaos theory of science, they say that if you're caught up into something, it appears chaotic to you. But
Mhm.
if you look at a broader perspective, it's actually very
Magical.
orderly. So for example, human growth and development. If you're a teenager with hormones raging, you feel that everything is chaotic. But if you're a scientist who's studying the different stages of human development, you say, no, it's actually very orderly. So that's also one of the advantages of of studying theosophy because you look at life from a broader perspective that, oh, these things are happening, but in the light of theosophy, they're happening because they're helping us grow and develop. And theosophy also gives you always a stimulus to become a better person. So in theosophy, we because we're all evolving, whether we like it or not, we're all evolving
Of
to
course.
awaken the higher nature within.
Mhm.
However, different people take on different speeds. So
Yes,
for majority of humanity, we're just taking it easy. So we just rely on karma and reincarnation to provide us the experiences that we need in order to grow and to evolve. But there are people, according to the Theosophical Society, who wants to take the accelerated path. So this path is dangerous because if you're not prepared, it could lead to problems. But it's a very very faster route. So if you want to attain enlightenment at a faster rate, you enter that path. But of course, you have to be prepared. And most of the work of the Theosophical Society is preparation. So most of us, our work is actually on character building. So if you will read our literature, our focus more today is just character building um, to study, to meditate, and to serve. And that already is a way to accelerate our path. We have a saying that when the student is ready, the teacher will come. So because in Theosophy, we have a concept of the Mahatmas, our high enlightened beings who watch over the destiny of humanity. So those of us who want to take the decent path, we have to become disciples of the masters. So we just study, meditate, and serve. We try to build our character. We try to live a purity, a life of purity, a life of virtue. And then eventually our auras will become so bright that the masters will take notice. And that is the time that we will enter this path of discipleship. But before that, our work is right now in this present plane. So we just have to do our part to serve. So one of the things that we have to also, one of the philosophical principles that stick to me, that really touched my life, is the concept of karma yoga. In karma yoga, we are told that we have to do good, but we must not be attached to the outcome of our actions. So, for example, there is a concept of karma and dharma. So, karma is our action and they come back to us. They sometimes appear as destiny because sometimes if it's already ripened, we cannot do anything about it. And then there is dharma, which is our destiny. So, for example, if I am a nurse and then a patient comes to me, so it is my duty or my dharma to provide the best care that I can give for that patient.
Yeah.
However, if that patient will recover or not, that is dependent on his karma. So I have nothing to do with that. I just have to do my very best.
Mm-hmm.
Ani Besan, second president of the Theosophical Society, says that whatever is beyond your best is no longer your service. So when in our life will always provide us with challenges. Life will always provide us with things that we need to learn. And it is our duty to do our very best in whatever situation that life has given us. If our best is not enough, then we have to trust because there are higher beings who will be able to do what we can't do. So our main task is to do our best. Where we are is our field of service. So our home, our work environment, our church or the Theosophical Society, if you're going to the Theosophical Society, these are our fields of service. And wherever we are, life will always provide us the learning experiences and the challenges. And we just have to do our best. Whatever is beyond our best, the masters or some other being will take care of that. The important thing is that we do our best. It's similar to what Christians say, right? That do your best and God will do the rest.
Yeah.
It's also similar to the Hindu
Yes.
concept of karma yoga. You do good, but you're not attached to the outcome of doing good. Madame Blavatsky, our founder, says that the goal of a theosophist is to become a mere beneficent force of nature. When she says mere, it means there is humility. You're not doing good because you want to have fame or acclaim that you're a good person. You're doing good because it's your nature to do good. And that is
Oo. Actually, being humans, it's really our nature to be good, to do good, and simply just do our best. Um, Tama rin yung I like the concept of non-attachment. Kasi we cannot really be so attached to certain things, especially the results that we want. And if it's really not meant to be, then there is a higher power and there must be a reason for that unless meron talagang kulang sa ginawa mo and you were not able to do your best. Yung akala mong best, hindi pala best, di ba? So, yun yung problem. Pero I love what you said na um, it's really simply learning from these fields of experiences like you being a nurse, then that's your field where you can learn to be more aware and to learn tapos mas magiging awakened ka because of those experiences that you have. And of course nasa TS ka rin, so that's another field of experience that you can go to. So, ganun din with all of us because like what Chris said earlier, the goal is really to be enlightened. And yes, it could happen in this lifetime, but it could also happen in some other lifetime or in other ways pa. Pero there is so many paths to enlightenment. And simply doing your best and doing good, that's one of the paths towards enlightenment. Um, Actually, kasi if we go to awareness pa and awakening and enlightenment, that's a whole new topic na naman. So, and now we've already reached the 1 hour mark. Ang sabi ko nga kay Chris, 40 minutes lang tayo. Pero wala, kasi ang ganda rin naman ng sinasabi niya. And what I love about Chris is that he gives the names of the persons who quoted this and quoted that. So, at least yung names ng iba na sinabi ni Chris, familiar sa akin kasi I also read through some of the writings of the mystics. So, yung ibang sinasabi niya authors, parang familiar. And even with Christianity, for those for those who took up, who graduated from Ateneo, we had our philosophy, we had our theology, and part of the curriculum is to study the mysticism in Christianity. So, nandun si Hildegard, nandun si Thomas Aquinas. So, a lot of mystics in the Christian tradition as well. And it's good that I also got to hear some of the names in Theosophy. So, it's this is truly full of knowledge and wisdom. Ito yung session natin, di ba? And to think that Chris here is a student of Theosophy for 20 years. And of course, true to the principles of Theosophy, we have to be humble. We have to live with humility. So kahit na ang dami na natin alam, we're still students, which is true because we are continuously learning in this life. And if actually I'm going to post the Facebook page of the Theosophical Society so that you could also get to know the activities, especially the self-transformation seminar. That's really a good one. Alam ko naubos na for November and December, di ba?
There's
So,
an upcoming one for November. Oh, it's gonna be online.
Ayun, alam ko naubos na yung slot eh. Nagsabi na si Vic Houchin. So sabi niya, for November and Feb na next year. So, I'll give I'll post the page so that at least you guys would be able to learn more about the Theosophical Society, and if resonates with you, it's good to study it as well so that you get to understand life in a broader point of view. And that's the beauty of it eh. Minsan, because we see things in a narrow way, so meron mga bagay na hindi natin masyado naiintindihan. Parang ang gulo-gulo for us. But if you take a step back and look at things from a higher point of view, you get to see that it's not really magulo. It's orderly. Just what Chris said. So this has been a session full of knowledge and wisdom. And really, thank you so much, Chris, for sharing all of those. And I am so grateful and I appreciate your time. I know that we're overtime na tayo. Pero super thank you talaga. And
Also for having me.
actually I couldn't add anything more. And if I ask Chris another question, that's another long set of answers na naman. So you could watch the video once again, and whatever it is that resonated with you, that must be the message that was meant to be really for you. So I hope that you gained something valuable from this. And I'm so happy that to have this opportunity. So thank you so much. And thank you so much, Chris. God bless. So that's it, everyone. I hope that you have a beautiful day. All right?